today's meeting. Moving on, we'll go through the apologies. And Colin, if you're on, is there any apologies being recorded?
Can I pass on apologies from Paul Clancy, Londonderry Chamber?
Yep, thank you very much.
Yeah, Mayor, we also have apologies from Martin Conley, Chair of the Ballyarnett Local Growth Partnership. As Dawn has said, Paul Clancy from the Chamber, Colin Eastwood MP, Rory O'Donnell will be deputising for him. Teresa Malloy from the Trust, Maura O'Neill will be deputising this morning, and Jerry Quinn as well has sent apologies.
No problem, Colin. Thank you. And Rory and Maura, you're both very welcome. Yeah, Seamus, go ahead.
It's Seamus Ward here from Western Trust. I'm deputising for Teresa Malloy, not Maura O'Neill.
All right. Thank you, Seamus. And you're very welcome along with Rory on behalf of Colin Eastwood. Members, declarations of interest, they can be shared now or in the chat box as they arise, if members are happy. And can I just also ask, in terms of some housekeeping today, if members want to have the meeting protocol is on your screen, or should be on your screen at the minute, but if members want to have an opportunity to speak or to ask questions, if they could just pop a message into the chat box, and myself or one of the co-chairs will come to you in due course. Moving on, the meeting minutes of the last meeting, which took place on the 22nd of October 2020. I don't think there's any matters arising from this end, but we'll take them for accuracy. First of all, if I can get a proposal and a seconder, please. Somebody?
Proposed, Chair.
Proposed, Alderman Ramsey.
Thank you. I think that was.
I'm happy to second them.
Thank you. I think that was Sandra Duffy, maybe, and Alderman Ramsey.
Sorry.
Sorry, Linda. Thank you.
It's okay. It's all right.
Thank
Whatever.
you. Thank you. Moving on then, matters arising from the same pages. Any member wishing to raise something? No. Okay, members, on that note, I'm going to hand over to one of our co-chairs, Gavin Colleen, to take us through the next stage. Gavin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is John with us? He is, yeah. Okay, this next stage is an update on the City Deal and the Inclusive Future Fund. I'm sure many of us were present last week, or certainly tuned in to see the signing of the heads of terms, which was a significant milestone in the for our council area, and there's been tremendous work has been carried out by the chief executive and his senior team within the council, and they're to be commended on it. So I'd like to now just hand over to John Kelpie to update partners on the City Deal.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. You'll be glad to hear I'm only going to speak in this for about an hour and 45 minutes. Joking. Everybody, I think, on the partnership at this stage is very well aware of City Deal and Inclusive Future Fund through the various reports over the years. And I suppose this morning was really just to kind of skip through very lightly some of what has happened over the last week or two. But probably at the outset, the single biggest and most important thing to say is a massive thank you to everybody on the partnership, everybody who took part in the event last week, and hopefully those of you who couldn't take part were able to view it. It was a very positive event. I think you would agree with us on that. We had been working with government and partners across the city and district and our elected representatives, both in council at MLA level and MP level, planning for this for quite some time. And the timing of it, I think, is also very important. I mean, clearly we've been through one of the most challenging years that we've ever been through in recent times. I know we're still in the middle of the pandemic and the health crisis, and it's been a very painful time for many individuals and many families who have suffered great loss and had great hurt this year. But hopefully we are now beginning to emerge from the worst excesses of it, and certainly for that to be bolstered with the fantastic economic, social and environmental news that we got last week really does set the city and district on a very positive course. Again, I always say, coupled with the huge number of other projects and initiatives that are being rolled out that are part of the strategic growth plan or associated with the strategic growth plan that each and every one of you and your organizations are also pursuing. It's a huge cocktail of projects that are hopefully taking us all in the right direction. But I suppose just quickly, just refreshing ourselves on the headlines again, it is the single biggest ever investment in a suite of projects at any one time that has ever been made in this city and district. It is funded to the tune of 210 million, half from the UK government and half from the Northern Ireland Executive across both City Deal and Future Fund. It is probably, and I always say this quietly, but it's also important to state it, probably one of the biggest ever city deals per head of population that has ever been signed by government for any city or region across the country. And at this minute in time, it's being augmented by approximately a further 40 million from the key partners who are Council, Ulster University, Western Health and Social Care Trust, Citric and Northwest Regional College, the key delivery partners. So the total package at this moment in time is at least 250 million. And I say at least because there could be some other money coming into the mix there as well as we progress over the next number of years. So £250 million across these projects. And we know that at the core of it is innovation. You don't have a city deal unless you have very strong innovation projects, and everything else flows from there. That's the construct of how it's put together. And 3-4 years ago, we approached the UK government with our 3 key innovation projects, which is the Coral project, the data analytics project at Ulster University, the AI robotics project at Ulster University, and the personalised stratified medicine project, which is a project between Altnagalvin Hospital, Western Health and Social Care Trust, and the university. And so they form the core of the bid, together with a broad proposal for smart and digitalisation projects across the city and region. Coupled with that, obviously, is the medical school. And then, probably quite simply put, there are 2 very major tourism and regeneration projects. Strabane Town Centre, probably the single biggest ever investment, well, most definitely the single biggest ever investment in Strabane Town, where £50 million of the government money, when it's augmented by the project partner money, will probably rise to between 75 and 80 million pounds. In the mixed use development proposed for the Canal Basin, that will see a new leisure centre, a new health hub, a new regional college, new business and innovation units, private sector investment, a new bridge over the river, and quite a significant enhancement to the streetscapes and public realm around the whole development. So a very, very, very significant development for Strabane Town, and an equally significant development for Derry City Riverfront and Wall City, which will see the complete reconstruction of Queen's Quay, which is the stretch from council offices roughly up to roughly the Peace Bridge, and into the Wall City and around Foyle Street, which will catalyse, we hope, the significant development or redevelopment of a number of key sites there, together with the delivery of what used to be called the Maritime Museum, is now called the Derry Londonderry North Atlantic attraction in Ebrington, and also another tourism initiative within the Wall City. All of this will be coupled, and has to be coupled, with a big focus on skills. And although there are no capital monies directed at skills, skills will sit as one of the 3 pillars of City Deal. Pillar 1 being the innovation, digital and health. Pillar 2 being the two big regeneration and tourism projects. But right bang in the middle, front and centre, will be the skills agenda. Very pleased to say that since we last spoke, we commissioned a piece of work to look at an independent economic analysis of the suite of projects contained within City Deal. And you all know that from the development of the strategic growth plan, we had undertaken an economic analysis of it at the time back in 2017, 2018. And that indicated that the suite of projects within the growth plan would lead to over 15,000 new jobs and a range of other very positive indicators. We were always very keen to understand exactly what the benefit would be from the City Deal projects. The City Deal projects come from the growth plan. They emanate from everything that we've been trying to collectively deliver in the growth plan. But as the funding amount changed over the last couple of years, and therefore the projects were morphing over the last couple of years, we didn't until before Christmas get to a point where we were absolutely certain on what that eventual funding package would be. And so when we had that information, we then went back to our economists and asked them to specifically model the impact of the City Deal projects, so those projects that I've just outlined. And they have done this in a situation where we are dealing with COVID, in a situation where there has been that economic impact of COVID. And the results are very positive. The results would indicate, and they're quite conservative, they would indicate that in terms of additional employment, the suite of City Deal projects themselves will deliver approximately 7,000 additional new jobs on top of any growth that was already taking place. And that those new jobs will be across the spectrum. They'll range from across all of the skill levels, from the skills that are required to drive the very significant innovation projects in the universities and the health trust, to apprenticeships, to construction jobs, to jobs in the hospitality sector and services sector, to jobs in leisure and recreation. And these will, of course, be developed over the period of the plan, which is approximately 10 to 12 years. So that's been a very useful analysis to undertake, and our economists have been at pains to say they feel this is actually quite conservative, and we've been as you know, all along we have tried to work this in terms of pragmatic realism as well as ambition, and to make sure that what we were piecing together and what we were constructing and proposing was something that was sustainable and could actually be delivered and would actually be delivered. So we're very cautious when we see numbers like that from economists, but they do, under fairly significant questioning of these numbers, would say they have very much erred on the conservative side. And they would actually consider there to be a much stronger uplift in that. So we're very pleased with those figures. There are corresponding potential rises in gross value added, which is the value of everything that we produce in the city and region. And there's a corresponding rise in wages. Very interestingly, there is also a population impact, and that's very important for us. Our NISRA statisticians would say, and it's true not just of this area, but other areas with an urban core, that over the next decade, it's likely that we will see a population decline. These projects reverse that decline and turn it into growth. Relatively modest growth, but nonetheless growth. And very importantly, and this brings me back to the skills point again, and working with our partners in the regional college, in the university, in the schools, and with our community and voluntary sector partners, obviously. They estimate that 70% of these new jobs could and should be filled by the population within the council area, with the remaining 30% of them being filled by those who wish to come in the council area to work. So again, it's a very big prize, which is why we're putting the skills and pathways to employment agenda right at the heart of this. If in 10 years' time we are looking back and we have delivered all of these projects, of course it will be a success, but it won't be enough if we find that only 20 or 30% of the jobs in those projects have been filled by people from beyond this region, and we still have the high inactivity levels and unemployment levels that we currently suffer within the city and district. So we do really need to work, as we always do, together right from now, right from the get-go, to ensure that those jobs and those opportunities are available to our own people and protect them. So, very positive announcement last week. It was quite challenging in terms of hosting an event of that scale. The mayor was front and center of it, and I know he's on the phone. I would have to say this. I would say this even if you weren't, Brian. Did a sterling job. We were delighted that so many ministers, including the First and Deputy First Minister, joined us on the morning, albeit virtually, and we had contributions from the Economy Minister, the Infrastructure Minister, and the Finance Minister as well. And we were also delighted to be joined by the Secretary of State. But, you know, I mean, that's great to see that level of political endorsement, but I think what is even more encouraging is that there were so many partners from so many fields of and sectors across the city and district who also participated, and more importantly, led to success in the first instance. So, you know, it's not often that we pause for a moment to congratulate ourselves, because there's always another challenge, and our challenges are so huge that that sounds counterintuitive at times to congratulate ourselves. But it's been a huge accomplishment. It's been a massive effort. There is a huge effort ahead. We have another massive mountain to climb over the next couple of years to take these projects to the next stage. Big challenge around governance, accountability, structures, resources, project management teams, how they all fit together. Consider one very large capital project and the complexity of delivering that, and now try to consider how 14 of those will run together in parallel with multiple different funding sources and multiple different organizations, and how all that fits together. So that's a challenge, but it's a challenge we'll succeed in. It's a challenge we have the capacity and competency to do from within the city and region. And it's an exciting time ahead. People will be impatient in terms of, I can already sense what Radio Foyle are going to be running this week, next year. 1 year on from City Deal, where are we? Where are the cranes? Where are the buildings? Where are the jobs? We've been at pains to say this is a medium to long-term project. Most city deals are delivered in a 10 to 15 year time frame. We knew, all of us knew from the start, we don't have that time. We can't wait for a decade. So this city deal has been constructed in a manner that Project One can move ahead very quickly. And Project One, and I see Malik on the call, is the medical school, and will open in August. So our city deal will begin to deliver immediately this summer. And in 2 to 4 years, the new medical school will be up and running. It's obviously working out of temporary accommodation at the moment. The tourism projects will come on board from years 2, 3. The leisure project in Strabane, hopefully year 3, 4. And so on and so forth. So we will hopefully see delivery of the projects every couple of years over the next 10 years, not everything being devised and planned and then a sudden burst of activity. And I think that's really important. in terms of confidence that it's going in the right direction, building momentum, and keeping people with us on this journey. So I thought this morning it wouldn't be of any great benefit to put up some slides. You will have in your packs this document, and if you don't, it's online on our website. We have devised this piece of updated communication for anybody who wants to drill a little bit deeper into what it's all about. What I would say is it's a document that you own. So it's for each and every one of your organizations to use this document in whatever way you wish to communicate the message of this initiative that we've all been part of. Please feel free to disseminate it across your networks as a communication tool. Once we got ourselves down from this particular milestone, we'll now begin as project partners to talk about the really hard piece ahead, governance and resources, outline business cases and the mechanics of all of that. And hopefully at the next meeting of the partnership, update you with a time frame as to where we're going with all of that and the key next steps. So once again, thanks very much, and Mayor and Co-Chair Gavin. I'm very happy to take any questions if anybody has any. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, John. Has anybody got any questions for our Chief Executive? I find it hard to believe that Leo Murphy and Malachy O'Neill are both silent. Sorry, yes.
As chairperson of the Strabane Neighbourhood Renewal Stroke Growth Partnership, I want to pay a massive word of tribute. Thanks first of all to John Kelpie for his comprehensive report there. And on behalf of the Strabane community, I want to pay a special word of thanks to everybody that has made this possible. And an injection of £70+ million in the Strabane town centre is totally unbelievable. It's something that nobody in this town has ever experienced, as John has pointed out. And I know people will be looking for stuff built yesterday. And we need to be constantly, over the coming months and even over the coming years, continue to put the message out there, what is happening, because, right away, when they talked about building a further bridge to link the bus station to the town centre, people were saying, why is this money not being spent on mental health? People obviously don't understand where the pots of money come from and where they can be directed. But as I say, as chair of the Strabane partnership, I want to pay a special word of thanks to everybody that made it happen. And it's an unbelievable boost for Strabane town. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mayor, yeah.
Thank you, Gavin, and thanks to John for his report. I suppose it's more a comment than a question. And just as Mayor, I would like to pay tribute to John and all of his team for getting the city deal to the stage that we're now at, a stage that is now believable for many of our residents right across this city and district, and also to everybody on this call within the Strategic Growth Partnership who has played a huge role in supporting council to move this project to the next stage. Within that, a suite of projects, which I believe we have an opportunity now. We literally have the future of this city and district and the Northwest region in our own hands. I firmly believe that it will be the benefits of this city deal will be seen further afield than Derry and Strabane. I believe that Fermanagh Noma District Council, Causeway Coast and Glens, Donegal County Council areas will all benefit from the hard work that we have put in. And I was delighted to sign the city deal and the heads of terms last week on behalf of council. But I suppose on behalf of the elected members, to thank everyone on this call for all of the work that they have done to get this ready, because I believe and firmly believe that we now have an opportunity, the best opportunity that we have ever seen right across the city and district, to provide jobs, to provide good salaries, and to provide opportunities for all of our people right across the city and district. And I think last week was a very historical day for this city and district, and hopefully a day where we can see that we were beginning to turn the tide on the outlook of many of the people right across the city and district. So for that, thank you all very much for your input. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Gavin, from
Yeah,
a
yeah.
university perspective, just to confirm, John's already alluded to the medical school. The work is well and truly underway in terms of the temporary accommodation, and I think it was timed that gained some momentum last week also. So in terms of the physical manifestation of City Deal, it's already underway, but obviously we all look forward to the developments along the riverfront, etc. as well, and also just to pay tribute to John and his team for his leadership throughout this process.
Okay, thank you, Malachy. Martina?
Thank you, Gavin. And like everyone else, I think we all acknowledge the sterling work that John and the council team put into getting us where we are here today. I was glad to hear John outline the 3 pillars, particularly the skills agenda, because that's going to be the agenda that is going to demonstrate to the people of Derry and Strabane that this fantastic opportunity that we have will make a difference to their lives. So as Sean said, the work will start now. Obviously Leo in the college, McGee, and particularly those in the voluntary and community sector. I'm very conscious in this city, we had a model where the Greater Chantal Area Partnership, GSAP, had taken that forward for, it was only at the stage that it was, it wasn't something that ended up as a program, but the Greater Chantal Area Partnership GSAP Community Works Program was by far more beneficial than anything that had been in place from the British government, step to success. So we've seen that the participation in that resulted in those what is called the hard to reach in society, those that are on, unfortunately, in the labour market, can't get access to the labour market, and you have generational unemployment. So we need to be able to reach those, particularly the most vulnerable in society, and show the people in Derry and the district in Strabane that they will benefit from this. So I would be keen, as this is moving forward, to get information as to how we're rolling that out, how we're utilising the opportunity we have for the Northwest Skills Agenda to make sure that we skill people up, we train them for the labour market that is coming on stream. And I think that necessitates across the council area for us to examine the kind of training that is currently underway. Is a training that would actually make an impact, that it would develop people and have them skilled ready, upskilled, or with an opportunity to avail of the job. So I think there's a bit of work for us to do. I know there's a lot of work for us to do. As John said, the work starts now. And I would say, just on behalf of Sinn Féin, to make sure that John and those that are involved in moving these pillars forward, if there are any obstacles in the way, if they feel that we can use our access to the ministers to make sure, whether it's offline, whether people know there were quiet conversations that had to take place, so that John is able to make the statement that he did today, that this city and district got the biggest ever city deal and growth plan than anywhere else. That had to be fought for, that had to be defended, and the city collectively did that and secured it. So well done to John and all involved, and just to make sure that people know that if there's anything that needs done in the time ahead, perhaps to iron out some wrinkles, and there will be a few that will materialise, to make sure that they utilise the MLAs and elected reps to be able to try and make interventions where we can.
Okay, thank you, Martina. David Ramsey?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to reiterate our thanks to John and the team and everyone involved. This is without doubt the best thing has happened for this city strategically and for the future in many years. We look forward to it. And you look around at the minute when you're driving around, you see all our supermarkets expanding, you see more supermarkets being built and developed, housing, and you see it's nearly like an anticipation of what's coming down the road, because of the jobs, and as Martina mentioned there about the skills is a big issue for us, and we've been constantly talking about it, and now we're here now. We've got the money, we've got what we need to move this forward. So and yes, people are going to be impatient, and yes, we're going to have to keep, keep people up to date so they know exactly what's happening. And over the next 15 years, we're going to see cranes, we're going to see developments all over. And as I say, you can see it already, the anticipation that's out there when you look around you, and we all look forward to it. And on behalf of the DUP, just would like to thank everyone who has got us thus far. Thank you.
Okay, David, thank you. Any other question? Leo?
Yeah, just to confirm, along with Malik is one of the signing partners on behalf of the Northwest Regional College. Really go on record to thank John, particularly, and his team, who provided great leadership, keeping everybody in the room over the parade. I agree. Just 2 points to pick up. I think Martina's correct. Skills are absolutely crucial around this piece, the infrastructure on its own. So I think we're still going to have to be in a continued conversation with government to open up the necessary pathways into all age apprenticeships, into public service apprenticeships, into job pathways. Is very important. I think one of the tests of the deal will be those who are furthest away from the labour market at this point in time, what they feel the deal has done for them in 10 years' time. The second thing, I suppose, I see heading on there from Strabane, is we have commenced the work now on our outline business case, and we're meeting a range of stakeholders, post-primary school principals, etc. Because what we've said, this is a Strabane PLC case. Everyone needs to come in behind this to make the business case as strong as possible. So just from our end, very happy that the role the college has played, and look forward to working our way through this city deal.
Okay, Leo, thank you for that. I think that's probably most comments or questions from everybody. Yeah, well, look, John, obviously on behalf of the entire group, the entire partnership, thanks you and your colleagues within council on where we've got today. While it's been significant amount of work has been put into getting us where we are today, we're only really beginning to start the hard work now as we go forward over the next, 10 to 15 years. The skills piece is critical. The creation of new opportunities, from the university driving R&D activity and innovation that will create the new job opportunities. And it's all our responsibility within the partnership to ensure that those opportunities are for all members of the society within the Northwest City region. And particularly, we welcome, John, if we can deliver on those 70% jobs being delivered to people within the local region will be phenomenal, and it will really make a huge difference to a lot of the citizens of this area, and that's what we all hope for. So it's just, before I finish, it's just really for the partnership to endorse John's update and welcome the actions that have happened last week. So I think everybody is in agreement with that. So I don't think all heads are nodding. So Rachel, the partnership have widely accepted or endorsed John's proposal, and we welcome this stage of the deal, and we look forward to further updates as we go forward over the next years. And most of us won't be here in the long, not too distant future reporting back on the updates, but we'll sit back on the sidelines and watch the development really happen in the future. So thank you for that, John, and your team. And I'd now like to hand over to the Mayor for the next stage. Hand over to you now, Mayor.
Thank you, Gavin. And members, the next stage, as you will see, is the Strategic Growth Plan Programme Update, and I'm going to ask Rachel Craig to take us through it. Rachel?
Thank you, Mayor and co-chairs. The purpose of this report is to update the partnership on progress in the implementation of the Strategic Growth Plan. And the report provided to you in your packs is quite a detailed document and a detailed report, but it contains broadly 4 areas in relation to the general programme management of community planning in Derry and Strabane. So within your report, you will see 4 things: an update on the progress on the key population indicators, a draft progress report on the actions within the plan, details on the forthcoming review of community planning, and also reference to the consultation on the outcomes framework for the programme for government. So in terms of key issues, co-chairs, an update on the key population indicators is provided at Appendix 1 for your consideration. And this report shows that of the 54 population indicators that we have in the Strategic Growth Plan, 33 are showing a positive upward change from the baseline data recorded at the start of the plan in 2017. 14 indicators are showing a negative change and 7 report no change. When we've reviewed the progress on the indicators, it's important to note that some of the progress on the indicators has been impacted by population, particularly in relation to A-level results, training for success and apprenticeships. And the introduction of universal credit has had an impact on claimant count, and crime data has been impacted by harassment now being recorded as a violence without injury offence. It has to be said that the large majority of the data has not caught up with the pandemic yet and has yet to be released. As you're all aware, there's always a time lag when we're looking at population-wide indicators. However, broadly and thankfully, our performance on our population indicators are showing positive progress, and that's very good. In terms of the actions then, co-chairs, a draft progress report on the implementation of the actions within the strategic growth plan is available in the link detailed in 3.1 of the report. It's a very detailed report. There's 124 pages on it, and I would like to thank all of the statutory partners and council colleagues who have supported us in providing progress updates on each of the actions detailed within the report. And as you're aware, we provide this progress report every 6 months. So as we always do, we allocate each action a RAG status based on whether the action is currently being progressed within the short, medium and long-term timescales specified within the plan. And in summary, the progress report shows that of the 235 actions that we have and sub-actions within our plan, 11% are already complete, 75% are on track to be delivered as planned, and 11% are reporting as progressing at a slower rate than originally planned. The actions report does include the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, as it is up to date as we can get progress updates at this point in time. And again, co-chairs, I'm pleased to report that it also shows positive progress in the implementation of the strategic growth plan. The third aspect of this report, co-chairs, refers to the review of the community plans, and attached to Appendix 2 is correspondence to the co-chairs of the partnership from the Department for Communities in relation to the pending review of community plans. This correspondence provides recognition of the impacts that COVID-19 pandemic has had on community planning, and indicates that whilst we need to provide assurance that the plan still meets the needs of the community by November of this year, November 21, there's been an extension to a more formal review to April 2022, and that will align with the review for the new multi-year programme for government, which leads me on to the final and last aspect of my report. It relates to the Programme for Government Draft Outcomes Framework, which was launched by the Executive on the 25th of January, and it outlines Northern Ireland's executive draft outcomes, which are aimed to improve societal well-being. The draft framework, as you can see, contains 9 outcomes as opposed to the previous 12. And I suppose looking at it from our plan perspective, it aligns more closely to the 8 outcomes that we have within our plan. I suppose it's obviously particularly important, this outcome and programme for government, as we've always sought close alignment of both central and local plans in Derry and Strabane to put strong foundations in place for wider public sector collaboration. So the responses to the consultation are invited up until the 22nd of March. And this date is the first step in a longer term policy development process. A draft response has been prepared for the partnership's consideration, and this will be augmented based on some very positive and valuable feedback received from councillors at Tuesday evening's Governance and Strategic Planning Committee, which will make the response a little more robust. Subject to members' views, it is recommended that members endorse the contents of the report and the positive progress which we're reporting in terms of the progress of the strategic growth plan, and note the departmental guidance on the review of community plans. Thank you, co-chairs.
Thank you, Rachel, for that. Members, is there any questions or any points anyone wants to raise? Jim McColgan. Jim, I think you're still on mute there, are you? No, you're still on mute, Jim. Jim, I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
I'll come back.
No, go. Yep, go ahead. No, go ahead. We can hear you now, Jim.
Can I get on?
No, Jim, we can hear
Can you
you
hear
now.
me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you can hear me. Oh, sorry, sorry. My fault. Yes, just in response to the programme for government draft response, just one thing I would, I would add, as in terms of the Rural Needs Act, I would suggest that the collaboration between the various departments take account of that, and also the fact that in terms of population growth, the rural population has increased by about 16%. As opposed to 6% in urban areas. And also there's been an increase in rural isolation with regard to elderly people and so forth. Child poverty, again, is another issue which needs to be addressed within that. I'll make the point at this stage rather than hold the session up later on. But with regard to the rural issues group that's being formed, I would just make one point there that the many of the rural community groups do not have key funding for their staff, and as a consequence of that, there are difference with that with regard to the growth partnerships funded through DFC. And I think with the Shared Future Fund coming online, that particular group could actually perhaps lobby to ensure that there's compatibility between the urban groups and the rural groups. So that's the points I would like to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I can see Rachel nodding tentatively there. She was making some notes, so I'm sure that that'll be included in the response, Jim. Thank you. Any other member wish to? John Kelpie, yep.
Chair, thanks for bringing me in. And maybe just to pick up on a couple of comments there that Jim has made. I think we fully understand that there's still an issue of resourcing across some of our local growth partnerships, and in particular our rural partnerships. We're very happy to sit down with the partnerships just to look to see what else needs to be done and what can be done to try to alleviate that. Clearly, it's not necessarily something that we in council can fix, but we can certainly try to understand what more needs to happen and how we collectively help address that situation. So thanks for raising that point again, Jim, today, and we will work with the partnerships over the next couple of months just to understand where the issues are and how we can help. The comments, Jim, you've made in terms of the PFG outcomes consultation, obviously Rachel and ourselves will take that on board, and I would just make the offer to any partner. I know that many of you will probably be responding from your own organisational perspective, but if there's anything you feel that you want added from the growth partnership, then maybe over the next week or so, please feel free to drop us a note, pop us an email with any suggestions, and we'll try to incorporate it. But just picking up on Rachel's report, and maybe linking back, Mayor, to what we said earlier, there's often we're all ambitious and we're all anxious for change, and we've often criticised plans for being just that, plans that don't deliver. And I think the fact that we're actually showing today that in the biggest ever plan that we've coalesced to write and design, with over 200 actions, 86% of them are either underway, on track, or are delivered. And that's an incredibly high percentage across such a broad range of diverse actions. So it augurs well for the health of the strategic growth plan and the partnership. We can always do better, and we always will do better. But I think it's a very healthy sign that just a few years into the plan, that such very positive progress has been made. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any further member? Just check me. The other page there, members, if you just bear with me. No. Okay. Moving on then. I think I'm handing over to Kenny for the next part. Yep.
All right, everyone. I think, like the rest of the meeting so far, it's been it's quite positive, and I think this is another positive step going forward to see this group established, the Rural Issues Group. And I would just like to say before I hand over to it, that I think the last year, the rural community and the groups in it has actually stood up and come together to deliver and provide for the communities that we live in and represent. So I think it's actually been positive, what has happened. I think it's also highlighted, as Jim has already says, there's an inequality around support and infrastructure. And I think over the last year as well, we've certainly come together with working with all the chairs of the 8 boards, the strategy managers, Philip and the staff at Rapid has all come together. And I think maybe for the first time in my time involved in council is that we see the whole community sector going forward together and everybody being involved. So I think there's been a lot of positives came out of which was a terrible situation. And I think this is a great time to have this local Rural Issues Group established and supported by everyone. So look, I'll hand over to Una McGallion, please.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, for that introduction, and thank you, members, for this opportunity to come today. It's one of 2 papers that I'll be presenting this morning, and as you can see that in the detail of the report, we're seeking your approval that we would establish a Rural Issues Group under the Strategic Inclusive Growth Partnership, and we set out our rationale for that. But before I go into the rationale, I just want to give a bit of context. So members have been discussing for a number of months the best way to address rural issues, and many of the rural issues that they have been tackling with are actually outside of the remit of council, and they're really keen in terms of the partnership approach that they find solutions and find ways to co-design opportunities to address some of these key issues. So members, you will be very aware that within council we have got our committee structures, and many issues of a rural nature do come before committee and funding's approved through committee, and we've got various policies and strategies in relation to that. In addition to that, members, we also work with the Rural Needs Act, where on an annual basis we give a report back to Derry in terms of how we've given due consideration to rural needs in any policy or strategy that we've taken forward. And notwithstanding that amount of work that we do undertake, we still felt that there was an opportunity to escalate particular key issues of a rural nature, and we considered that the best way to do that was actually under the remit of the Strategic Inclusive Growth Partnership. And members, within section 3.1 of the report, you can see some of the issues that have been previously identified by elected members that they felt that needed more attention than what currently is being received. And in addition to those, particularly the capacity has recently and has been identified by elected members and seen that there's a need for that cross-partnership approach in terms of how to best address that. Very excitingly at this stage is the opportunity for the 3 local growth, rural growth partnerships to come together, and Marion Ferran has done a piece of work which is very timely in respect of being able to identify some of those synergies between the 3 areas, but also looking to see what individual or new actions may need to be brought forward. And there was a proposal, members, around the idea of a symposium whereby we have dedicated discussions and seminars on key issues that really required quite a large conversation around, but also required the key decision makers and policy makers that could give their expert opinion in terms of the best way to take those forward. And you can see within the report that we propose that there will be 3 of those will be carried out each year. Remember, 3.2 of the report gives a broad outline in terms of the governance arrangement. So whilst this would be a group within the Strategic Growth Partnership, you can see that in addition to membership from the growth partnership itself, we're also looking to identify other key representatives who could be part of this group. And I suppose the key thing here really is that we want to be as inclusive as possible, whilst being very mindful that we don't want such a large group that it becomes unmanageable, but at the same token, making sure that the key voices and the key opportunities are heard within this work. So members, in addition to elected members and members of the Strategic Growth Partnership, we would like key government departments represented. There was a request from a representation from Donegal County Council, but also the rural growth partnerships, the Derry, Lag, Rapid and Farmers groups. We would propose that the group would be co-chaired by an elected member and a non-elected member. Members, the governance is very similar to the types of operations that you currently use for the Strategic Growth Partnership. We would look to bring regular reports back to the Growth Partnership. We would look to give escalate issues within a council perspective through the normal committee structures, and also that where things sit outside of council, that we will go to the relevant government department and ask for them to consider those key issues. Members, it's proposed that it would operate initially for a 3-year period, and thereafter that we could review that and bring back a report both to Council and the Strategic Growth Partnership. And members, that within the operations of it, that it would be seen as a cross-departmental project within Council, and that we would also look to see that it being a cross-departmental issues group within the Strategic Growth Partnership. So members, I just await your comments and any questions that you might have, and I present it to you today for approval. Many thanks.
Thank you, Una. As I say, I have to commend the work of the other Paddy and Martin and Derek and Sperrin, and I'd like to thank as well for the support we've got from Philip, who's actually been sort of the go-between and it's more likely made it a bit easier for us because at times it has been overwhelming, some of the stuff coming through. But any other comments? No, that's good. Unfortunately, it must be an urban type of thing to meeting today. Rural isn't interested. So look, I think we have to endorse this. So could someone sort of propose that we go down this road of the Rural Issues Group?
I'm happy to propose.
Paddy? Yeah. Thank you. Going right back to the mayor, is it?
Yep. Thank you, Kenny, for taking us through that section. Sticking with the cross-cutting themes, item 7B is the anti-poverty, and I'm going to ask Una to take us through that again.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you, members, again for giving me the opportunity to present on the anti-poverty actions. Members, the purpose of this report really is to give you an update and also to outline how we feel that this work will fit within the Strategic Inclusive Growth Plan and the partnership, the work that you're undertaking. And within the background and the context, we give you some information in relation to a motion that came before Council back in October of last year. And that motion had 6 key components within it. And members, you'll not be surprised at the concern by our elected members in relation to the levels of poverty within our council area. And of course, it's been a key aspect of the growth plan and also in terms of being a cross-cutting theme. And members were very keen to hear from the Department for Communities who have responsibility in taking forward the new anti-poverty strategy, just to hear their proposed methodology and also to understand in a bit more detail the levels of statistics and the level of interventions that are currently available. So DFC Policy Unit did come down to Council and give a very detailed presentation and also outline their methodology in terms of the co-design of the strategy. And whilst members recognised that there was this strategic work being undertaken at a Northern Ireland level, they also felt that there was very immediate activity and response that Derry City and Strabane District Council could take forward. And on that basis, not only did they set up an anti-poverty task and finish group, but they also looked to put financial resources into a hardship fund that could respond immediately to some of these key issues. And members, you will know very, very well that council doesn't do these type of things on its own. The hardship fund is very much a partnership approach, and you can see within the paper that there's 2 stages outlined in relation to that. So stage 1 was working with some very immediate activities that we could undertake, and that was in partnership with the community and voluntary sector, who are the front face and who are delivering a lot of the key components in terms of food poverty, fuel poverty, digital poverty, and advice hours. And we were very, very happy to be able to respond to that. In addition to that, we feel that to take this forward, it needs a more strategic approach. And you can see contained within the paper that whilst there's a huge level of activity being currently undertaken, that we actually are lacking a lot of the key indicators and baselines in terms of what's the best way to move forward. So, for example, how many new people have approached advice services, how many people in low-income families have required support, how does that compare to people that are maybe potentially on benefits. So there's a whole range of support that's available. We're not entirely sure that everybody is aware of that support that's available and what gaps are available in that support. So for that reason, we're commissioning a piece of work which is going to give us a very detailed synopsis of what's already there and where we need to plug the gap. And that information will really help to design phase 2 of the hardship fund. Members, in addition to that, within the key component of the report, you can see that we're very mindful of the work in terms of the strategic inclusive growth plan, and we've got an opportunity to come and present to the health and wellbeing partnership, outcome delivery partnership now during March, and that will give us an opportunity in terms of being able to identify what's the best steps towards the establishment of an anti-poverty working group, what would be the best approach in terms of developing an action plan, how can that action plan actually fit within the Northern Ireland action plan that's been taken forward by the Department for Communities. And we would like to highlight that we did take the opportunity to provide a response to DFC, and that's contained within 3.1 of the report, where we really highlight this need for objective analysis and this idea that it's identified in terms of real need, and that sub-regional approach would be very, very beneficial to the needs that we have experienced locally. We're conscious that any type of intervention that should be taken forward does require policy, does require finance, and does require partnership working. And for that reason, we've already had presentations not only from DFC, but also from Joseph Rowntree Foundation. We've met with some of the local growth partnerships, we've met with the advice services, Derry Credit Union, for example, in terms of being able to provide finance. We're really building up that picture in terms of local need, so that whatever interventions are included within this action plan are very much targeted. And that takes us then in terms of the city deal, because there's a huge opportunity in terms of the social value work that council is going to be taking forward, and also the welfare reform work that it's taken forward, that all these different components come together to really show a joined up approach in terms of addressing those that are suffering from poverty. So members, it's really just to provide you with an update and also to let you know that we will continue to be engaging with the Strategic Inclusive Growth Partnership through the Health and Wellbeing Outcome Delivery Partnership, and very happy to come back at various points to give further updates in relation to the work that we're undertaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Una, for that presentation. Members, the recommendation of 5.1 is members' comments are sought in respect to the above item and presentation. If any member wishes to address it. Martina Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think in the first instance, it's good to see the establishment of a rural issues group. We all know the difficulty sometimes rural proofing, the importance of it, but trying to get the cross-departmental nature of that. And it's the same at council level, and sometimes those who live in the rural areas feel that they can be an afterthought. I know that's not the case in terms of this council area and district, but I just think it's good to see the establishment of that, because it will ensure that rural proofing is kept on the agenda across these fields. I'm conscious of the consultation that is out currently in the programme for government, and the one that's running parallel with this, Chair, is a consultation on EQIA, the quality impact assessment, and we need to make sure that both of them, that we feed into both and that we're aligned in the work that we do. I think the anti-poverty expert panel who has concluded on their report, that's going to feed in to the groups, the co-design groups that have already been established, and it's the co-design groups that will actually develop the anti-poverty strategy. So I would say to you and the team, it would be good to reach out to those co-design groups, because they are going to be looking at those and dealing and engaging with people who have had the real lived experience of poverty. So just as you've commissioned that piece of work, which I think will be very good for the city, to paint the picture of the need, it's about obviously engaging with those people who have that lived experience as well, and the co-design groups who will be the groups that will ultimately develop the anti-poverty strategy are groups that are at this stage worth engaging with. I know there's one or two people on the co-design group from Derry, and there's others across the north. So it would be good to tap into that. When you talk about social value, I think it's worth too, as we pull all these threads of these together, sometimes it can be a bit of a jigsaw, Mayor, that we keep an eye on the Social Value Act and the social value and the work that's going on. We know now that social value has been mandatory in the central procurement directive. We know that Minister Conor Murphy has brought that forward. So we need to ensure, because the procurement is going to be crucially important to the projects, that particularly capital projects for the city in under the city deal and inclusive growth plan. So all of these things are connected, and we just need to make sure that as we're tying all them together, that they're aligned as opposed to running parallel. So thank you, Una, for that report. I have appreciated getting the information today.
Thank you, Martina. Any further comments, members? No. Happy to endorse the report then. Yeah. Thank you. Members, moving on. 7C, I'm going to hand back to Gavin to take us through the chair of this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Is that me? No, sorry about that. Members are aware of the challenges that the current food system face, and this has largely arisen out of a combination of global climate changes, local changes. We've all seen, as a result of Brexit, food supply within supermarkets has been critically effective, and more recently COVID-19 and the effect that it has had on food poverty. The need to address the existing unsustainable food system has been identified in the Council's Green Infrastructure Plan, which has previously been presented and endorsed by this growth partnership and by the Council. Colin Kennedy is now going to give us a presentation on 4 food initiatives that will animate and explain their interconnectivity and the importance in the current climate and environment. Colin?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. My name is Colin Kennedy. I'm Council's Natural Environment Regeneration Manager. So basically, I'm responsible for the management and development of Council's green infrastructure. So I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you today and seek your endorsement later on in terms of the wider food agenda. So Colin, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so what I'm going to briefly do is just give a visual presentation on 4 food sustainable projects that we and our partners are undertaking in the city. And I'll just run through each one. There's quite a lot of information in your pack, so there's background reading that you can read at your leisure. So the first one, if we go to the next slide, Colin. Okay, the first project is called Acorn Farm, and this is a collaboration between the Acorn Fund in Derry and Council. And what this seeks to do is this seeks to develop a space within the city to look at peri-urban farming. Next slide, please. Okay, and so this proposition is based on permaculture. And for those who don't know about permaculture, permaculture means permanent agriculture, and it is a global food movement that was set up, as initially started in Australia in the mid-80s. But what it does is it looks at a design system in terms of how we look at producing food sustainably, based on using our natural resources and ecosystem services, such as in terms of our climate, in terms of our soils, etc. But the bottom line is that this system is based on 3 principles. Principle 1 is about caring for the earth. Principle 2 is about caring for people. And principle 3 is this fair share in terms of not wasting food, and if there's a surplus, then basically sharing the food system. So there's quite a lot of principles around it and ethos. And this really underpins our approach to creating a sustainable food system within the city. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is St. Combs Park. St. Combs Park is in the waterside. It's a 70-acre park, and over the last number of years, council and their project partners have been developing the park incrementally in terms of looking at the house, new avenue, and to the right-hand corner there, where there's the former MOD helicopter site, we have a proposition called Acorn Farm. Next slide, please. And basically what this proposition looks at is regenerating this space to bring it into being a growing space within the city. And some of the key features within that are very large geodesic domes that can be used as growing spaces. There's really good possibilities here in terms of how this can become a social farm within the city and how it can support lifelong skills, learning, training, etc., centered around food and food activity, but also how it can be an exemplar project in demonstrating in terms of how we can create food and within our own city, based on some of those earlier conversations that Gavin has alluded to in terms of the impact of Brexit, the impact of climate change, etc., and food poverty, which we've witnessed with the recent COVID pandemic. Next slide, please. Okay, just here's an architect's illustration of what the geodesic dome might look like. Next slide. Okay, and here's just another artist's impression of what the geodesic dome might look like. Okay, so the next agenda I'd like to talk about is sustainable food places. Sustainable Food Places is a UK network of about 60 cities, and they have recently reached out to areas where there's been a lack of food sustainable places, such as Wales and Northern Ireland. And we put in an application to be considered as a sustainable place, where they're giving us a small amount of money to create this movement. Next slide, please. And the key areas that they're concerned, they have these things called the 6 issues. And what they're about is basically taking a strategic and a collaborative approach to a good food governance and action. It's about building public awareness, active food citizenship, and a local good food movement. The next issue is about tackling food poverty, diet-related ill health, and access to affordable, healthy food. The next area is about creating a vibrant, prosperous, and diverse sustainable food economy. Issue number 5 is about transforming catering and procurement and revitalising local supply chains. And finally, what they're interested in is tackling the climate and natural emergency through sustainable food and farming and an end to food waste. So that's the 6 issues. Okay, next slide, please. What we have within the city, we basically have 3 food partners with the Acorn Food Partnership, which I talked about earlier, and the aspirations to regenerate St. Combs Park. We also have the legendary food brand, which everybody will be aware of, and it's very much aligned to Council's food and drink strategy. And then what we also have on the right-hand side is the Food Access Partnership. And that was a direct response, as everybody would be aware, to the COVID pandemic. So the objective is, what we need to do is we need to bring all these partnerships together under this sustainable food network and work together. And perhaps have a Northwest Food Partnership that will bring everybody working together under one mandate, very much aligned to community planning. And you can basically see how food cuts across so many different agendas. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the third initiative that we're working on is a project called Acorn Farm. It's called I Can Grow. And this is a project partnership between the Acorn Fund, Council, Conservation Volunteers, University College Cork, and it's funded by the National Lottery. Next slide, please. What we were very, very lucky in terms of the UK Climate Fund, in terms of putting in a very, very robust bid that secured £200,000 and that basically seed funding to create this new food agenda within the city. And what we've done is we've basically broken it down into a number of work packages, and there are 7 in total. And very quickly, the work package 1 is about basically building awareness and behavioural change in terms of basically food, climate change, and the need to address this. Work package 2 is about lifelong learning, and we're very pleased that our project partners, the Conservation Volunteers, through the I Can Grow programme, have put out an open call. We initially hoped to get 100 families growing food, but we now have 260. And really what that's about is basically bringing people and showing them at home in their own gardens and giving them skills to produce food. So dedicated resource such as a horticulture, and key to this is using the Brook Park Horticultural Training Centre as a learning venue. So that's up and running and going very, very well. Work package 3 is about climate change and food governance, and really this is about how we work with other cross-cutting agendas and other people who are interested in this. So we're very much linked in with the Belfast Food Network. We're also linked in with the Cork Food Council, and we're linked in with the UK Sustainable Food Places. So that's basically how we manage the project. Work package 4 is about applied research. We're working with Cork University. They're climate scientists, and what they're looking at a food climate vulnerability assessment of our city, just to see what the shocks and stresses are. And that's basically the academic bit in terms of business the case, building the business case for future for the need around food and the food agenda. Work package 5 is about growing technologies. We've secured a little bit of money through this thing, about £25,000. And what that'll do is that'll help us take the Geodesic Dome designs onto the next design development stage, which is building control. And obviously we're doing this all in anticipation for when the UK Climate Action Fund opens up the following June, that we want to put in a multi-million-pound application to secure that. Work package 6 is about dissemination of knowledge, and basically that's just basically an ongoing process. Now that we're linked in with the UK Climate Action Fund, there's a cohort of other cities and regions in the UK who are looking at various different climate action initiatives. So we're very much linked in with those and learning from those guys. And then ultimately, work package 7 is the longer term vision. And the longer term vision is obviously the Acorn Farm proposition, but also it's to create this this food movement and have everything centered around that. Okay, so that's our work packages. And then finally, if we just go on to the next project, a very interesting project that we're working on at the moment. And there are project partners are the Acorn Fund, Hollywood Transition Towns, Hollywood Shared Towns. And the project is called Growing Food and Growing Communities, and it's very much linked on the 3 pillars of food, climate change and biodiversity loss. It's a project that we did a sales pitch last year in Stormont, and we were successful in terms of getting a stage 1 application. We currently have a stage 2 application pending at the moment, and that stage 2 application is in the order of £85,000. It's looking very favourably. If that is secured, what that'll do is that'll give us the opportunity to engage with 400 people, 200 within Derry and Strabane, and 200 within the Hollywood. And what we're going to look at is from a council approach, almost like from a community planning top down, and from Hollywood a bottom up in terms of how they work with their councils. So there's a lot of shared learning to undertake there. And what we're working at the moment is a different method in terms of how we engage with people. But key to this, the engagement has to be centered around the 6 key food issues that I talked about earlier. Next slide. So really what it's about is it's about local food, biodiversity loss and climate change, and that's our stated vision. Next slide. Okay, and not to go into it, but what we've designed and developed together is a 3-stage engagement process in terms of how we explore the themes with stage 1 with so many people, how we then, once we get those embedded, how we increase the participation to up to 200. And that 200 also includes people within the local food sector. And then ultimately what we do as part of the stage 3 is how we inform food policy, not only at a local level, but also at a regional level. Next slide, please. So basically, that was a quick whistle-stop tour. And if anybody's any questions, I'm very happy to take them. Thank you.
Okay, Colin, thank you for that. If any members, any questions for Colin on his presentation?
Can I come in, please?
Yeah, Paddy, yeah.
Sorry, Colin, just you touched on the social farm model for the St. Colm's Park House or site. Are you linking in with existing social farms across the district? We have, well, I know of 3 offhand in the rural parts of the district that are operating a number of years. It would make great sense, I think, to include them in the process and maybe lean on their expertise. I don't know if that's happening or not, but if not, I think it's something we should be doing.
Yeah, well, Paddy, in response, I suppose the plan is when we set up this Northwest Food Partnership, okay, it's an open door for anybody who's interested in food or any stage of the food processing to engage. And I suppose the key thing is very much aligned to community planning processes in terms of having partnerships and networks and developing symbiotic relationships with each other so we can grow and learn together. So no, absolutely, it'll be an open call. There's quite a lot of work to do, and obviously thinking about partnerships and governance and getting that up and running. But I think we're very good at that in this city and region.
Yeah, Leo, I think Leo probably wants to come into the Food Innovation
Yeah.
Centre at the college. Yeah.
Yeah, Colin, just very interesting work there. I'm just wondering, have you connected with NWRC's Food Innovation Centre? So over 200 micro food businesses have gone through that, and many of them are developing organic products. So it'd be useful to connect with them because they're obviously using innovation voucher models to help small food companies get into the marketplace. So
Absolutely, Leo. We've been in contact over the years with Stella.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
And we got a very clear understanding in terms of what their needs were. And it seemed to me that their needs were that they need to have a venue in terms of for the sale, after sale, and they need to have spaces for scaling up of their design development. So we've been linked in with Stella, and they see the proposition of how this Acorn Farm could support them. One of the key things also, and as the 4th largest city on the island of Ireland, we don't actually have a food market, in terms of where you can actually grow and buy organic produce. So one of the key things is through this Acorn Farm is we want to do a pop-up experience and then try and build on that with the whole notion of fair share and surplus. But Lee, we've also been linked in with some of your other colleagues because I think last year you started a horticultural course.
Yeah.
And we were working with Antoinette to see how, if we were to create these spaces, how we can then link the work that we're doing, okay, with the work that you're doing, and possibly offer out, placement opportunities in different venues that are, slightly different. I mean, the whole idea of the Acorn Farm proposition, it's about this idea of agri-architecture, which looks at the marriage of agriculture and architecture. So this whole idea of vertical growing, hydroponics, etc. So definitely, Leo. Just reconnected with conversations.
Not everybody in the college tells me everything, so it's just making sure that you're connected in there. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from members for Colin? No, I think that seems to be everything. Colin, look, thank you very much for that. It was very informative and certainly very, very interesting. I could just see so many different strands there, addressing mental health issues, looking at our food tourism offering, as we move through and come out of the pandemic, and and linking in with the City Deal projects, having food tourism and being able to supply food that's of provenance. It links into education and skills. It helps people on that ground level. It's got an environmental impact, and then business startups, and it'd be wonderful to have a farmers market in Guildhall Square. On the first Saturday or second Saturday of every month would be fantastic. And a great opportunity. So look, there's some great work been done. Lots more to do and to continue, and it's a really interesting field that maybe we as a city and council region are underrepresented, but we've a huge opportunity. So well done. So it's really for members now to endorse Colin's work that he's doing so far. If everybody's happy. See any nodding heads? Yeah, everybody's happy for us all to generally endorse Colin's work and welcome it. We look forward to getting updates in the future, Colin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
And now pass back to Kenny for the next item on the agenda. Kenny, the age-friendly city and district.
Morning, Mayor and co-chairs, and thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on where we're at with the age-friendly city and district project. I suppose just to set the scene and why it's important, particularly this month when the census is coming up again, that we all know that we're facing an aging population, and by 2028, which isn't too far away, those aged over 65 and over will outnumber those that are under 16 years of age. And by 2041, those that are aged 85 years and more will more than double. So there's quite a a need coming down the line for services and adapting services and how we provide them going forward into the future. So in terms of the strategic commitments, I suppose on a regional and national basis, we've reference to the Making Life Better strategy and the Department for Communities Active Aging strategy, which was recently extended up until 2022. And the Department for Communities are now looking at developing a new active aging strategy going forward. So there will be a range of consultation events, hopefully later in the year, in terms of bringing that new strategy together, which is very timely for ourselves locally in Derry City and Strabane Council area, where we're just setting out in the journey to develop our. So as you'll all be aware, anyway, from our the strategic growth plan, our outcome is that we live long, healthy and fulfilling lives. And to do that, we're going to develop an age-friendly city and region through an integrated programme of action based on the right space approach and the World Health Organization approach. So what is an age-friendly city and community? Well, really, in essence, it's one where people are able to live healthy and active later lives. And we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but we're trying to get a bit more momentum behind our project again, because our last strategy elapsed back in 2019. So we're hoping to work with our partners and get more momentum through the project again, and appreciate all the help of the partners to date in doing that. So a number of factors that will influence how we will achieve our age-friendly city and community and district, and those reflect on the social factors, environmental factors, and the physical environment. So whether it's the mayor's tea dances to improve social participation of the community, our environmental influences and getting people out for their health and well-being through the greenways and the parks that we all have, and the physical environment, the homes that we live in, and the aspirations to have more homes for life, so people can have lifelong homes without having to resize or downsize or adapt their homes in the future. So I've outlined the 8 limbs of the WHO approach there. So as you can see, they're quite cross-cutting and interlinking with quite a lot of the other work that we hope to aspire through the inclusive growth plans and the local growth plans. So I suppose coming out of COVID as well, and the whole rebuilding of our lives and communities again, some that stick out there is the need for social participation, social inclusion, and civic participation, and employment and working into later life as well. But it's all about how we interact with others, the health supports that are there when we need them, and how we can actually get about in our daily lives, whether it's by car, public transport, or other means. So if we could, next slide there, please. So just in terms of where we came from, we had a previous strategy that ran from 2016 to 2019. So as I said, we're now in the process of developing a new strategy and action plan. So the transfer of the project actually came from developing healthy communities to council late in 2019, and we employed an age-friendly coordinator with effect from April last year, with support from the Public Health Agency funding. So in terms of where we're currently at, I suppose it's an exciting time, and there's a lot going on really in terms of how we're interacting with our partners. We had a meeting with some of you know attended back at late January, where we brought together our strategic growth partners for an interim meeting of the Age Friendly Alliance. And it was quite clear from that meeting that there's quite a lot of desire and support to progress age friendly into the future. So at the moment, we're just in the middle of a procurement exercise to bring on some consultancy support to do a co-design approach to consult with those individuals, groups, partners, in order to develop our new strategy. In addition, we also have our age-friendly baseline survey, which was just been launched and is open until the 9th of March. So far, we've had 152 responses to that, and that survey includes a range of questions based around the WHO approach in order to see how people feel locally and what the local needs are in terms of what services are there, what needs need to be addressed in terms of making the city and district more age friendly. So we're also assisting with the development of an older people's healthy aging network for the Northwest area. And really what we're trying to do there, and I know Roisin McLaughlin is coming after me, so Roisin is really leading on this, but it's really to bring the rural and urban groups together in order to get a common approach that are going to feed in to the strategy and action plan going forward, so that we have a whole district approach and we don't have any areas that going to engage with all our stakeholders, both in the C&V, members of the public that are interested, and our statutory partners. So you may be aware of quite a lot of communication through your social media channels and through your website and other press releases that we are building the profile steadily in terms of age-friendly and making people aware and doing joint initiatives with our partners in order to provide resources such as the Keep Well at Home, which some of you might be aware, which is a wide-ranging document in terms of improving people's health and well-being and awareness of services during COVID, and also some physical activity exercises that they can do at home in a safe environment for those that don't wish to leave their homes during the COVID pandemic. So we are networking as much as we can, and that includes both on a UK basis, the Northern Ireland Age Friendly Network, and also with our partners in Donegal County Council and Age Friendly Ireland. So there's quite a lot of learning in terms of some of those that have gone before and are further ahead in the process. But hopefully it'll help us catch up in terms of where we're at in getting our new strategy together and putting a sound action plan in place for the city and district. So we will keep building on our communication methods, and hopefully there will continue to be engagement and building more engagement from the city and district and all the groups and the individuals in terms of trying to address those gaps that are perceived to be there at the moment, so we can put a plan in place in the future. Next slide there, please. So in terms of where we want to be then, we would hope that during the course of this year, 21-22, that our strategy will be developed and draft, consulted upon, and ultimately agreed through council and possibly this group as well, with our wide-ranging action plan, and identify our partners and lead partners and who can assist in implementing the plan. So we will also hopefully have our structures in place, so we can have a wide-ranging forum or similar structure where any interested member of the public will be able to have their voice heard and contribute to the process, as well as our strategic partners going forward into the future. So really, I suppose where we're at, there is a lot of work ongoing at the moment. A lot of it, hopefully people are aware of, and we've tried to keep our profile high, especially during the consultation phase. So the consultant will now be engaging with community and voluntary sector, individual groups, Northwest Community Network, and any other interested partners. So it'll be far and wide, statutory and non-statutory, so we can, as I say, identify all the needs that are perceived out there, any gaps, and try and plug those gaps going forward, so we have a sound strategy going forward. So really the ask is, and a lot of this has been done already, and thank you to everyone that has assisted the project so far, is really to secure a commitment going forward for the Age Friendly project, and help interested parties participate in the co-design process, which is obviously key, and support the implementation, resource and delivery of our action plan and our local growth partnership boards. It would be actually very useful if you could identify those that are interested in progressing age friendly within your groups and make them known to ourselves, or certainly make them aware of myself and the council and the age friendly team, so we can engage with them And we have an age-friendly database which we send out a monthly bulletin to, which provides a range of resources and activities that are going on, and helplines and other useful information. So even building our database at this stage is quite a useful activity, so we can get information out in a timely manner to people across the district. So we'd hope as well, just as to develop our older people's network. I think that's going to be a key piece of work as well. So that there are many voices, wide and far, rural, urban, so that the strategy can be implemented. Especially a baseline survey that closes on the 9th of March. So it'd be great if any publicity through your own partnership boards can take that into account, because we'd like to get as many responses back to it as possible, because obviously the more we have in, the better the strategy and action plan should be. So that's a very quick whistle-stop tour, and hopefully I'll get an opportunity at some stage in the future to come back when our strategy is in place to maybe update the group and where we're at with it and where we're heading to at that point in time. But happy to take any queries or questions at this point in time. Thank you.
I can maybe just, as Alan had mentioned there, sorry, Rosh McLaughlin, I work at Northwest Community Network. Just to sort of a very brief update on some of the work that we were doing with the Older People's Network. So we're working with community activists who themselves are older people, very keen to have a community-led network. And we were working alongside council to develop that. We had a meeting on Tuesday, and it was great to see some new faces there. We're ensuring that there's an urban and rural representation, but at very early stages. So I think at this stage, following the meeting on Tuesday, we're going to do a bit of community development work, and I think we will be focusing on, you know, who the group are, what they want to achieve, who's missing from the table. So we'll be doing that work, but we'll keep obviously the link with council to keep them up to date with how it's going. But I think that's where we're at the minute. It's just maybe getting the group together to sort of finalise a wee bit of a strategy for ourselves, 2 or 3 actions to take forward. But there's commitment there and energy. And I suppose it's just seeing who's missing from the table. Because I recognise that we had our last conversation and we were saying we need to make sure that the local growth partnership boards that we're connected with them as well, which is very important. But the group are very keen that this is community led, so we will maintain that link with council as the network develops.
Okay, Roisin, thank you for that. I think Kenny wasn't able to come back there, so we've lost our chair. Any other questions for Alan?
Yeah, could I come on there? David
Sure.
Doherty from Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service. First of all, just to introduce myself, I've just been promoted into the prevention and protection as group commander. So I'll be attending all these meetings representing the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service. Obviously, what you're doing, look, that's the demographic that we're targeting for fire safety, and obviously a bike drive and a road safety. So just could you maybe take down my email and start including me in what you're sending out there, so that we'll make sure that the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service are represented in that and can assist you there.
David, that's fine. And council has a partnership agreement with Fire and Rescue Service.
Yes.
Derry, we would send referrals across from the Home Safety or Home Accident Prevention Service to yourselves as well. But by all means, we'll get in touch with you.
Yeah, no, it's very keen to get involved in that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, David. Anybody else, any questions or comments for Alan? No? Everybody okay? So really, Alan's request is really for us to endorse and for partners to commit to engaging and participating and supporting resourcing both ideas and development for an AIDS-friendly society and the action plan within the council area using a co-design approach. And for the implementation of this, are all members happy to endorse and support Alan's presentation? Yeah, I see nodding head. So yeah, we're happy to endorse that, Alan. So thank you for your presentation. And will I hand over to you now, Mayor? I think we're the only 2 chairs that are left.
The surviving few, Gavin, the surviving few. Item number 8, members. Roisin McLaughlin from Northwest Community Network is going to take us through. So over to yourself, Roisin, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for, I suppose, giving the opportunity to inform the partnership about this. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for the Derry and Strabane. It's a project called the Ideas Fund. I manage Northwest Community Network, and we're delivering this project in partnership with Developing Healthy Communities. So it's around the British Science Association and the Wellcome Fund are funding this project. We're one of 4 areas that are going to benefit from the project. The other areas are Hull, Oldham, Highlands and Islands of Scotland, and Derry and Strabane. So it's a type of funding that I think we haven't really had the opportunity to experience before. So it's going to focus on mental well-being, and how it's going to work is we're going to be bringing researchers and communities together. It's very much community-led, and it's where the communities will feel there's an issue that they feel needs to be addressed, or they have an idea of how they can address an issue. So we will be partnering them with a researcher. So it's very much about that partnership approach with the researcher and the communities. And hopefully we are hoping that after this project rolls out, that there will be sort of a relationship there that can last beyond the funding. So there are 2 levels of funding. There's up to 25,000 for very new ideas, and then there's up to 90,000 for ideas that are a bit more established. We've already had 1 webinar with all of the areas just to talk about how the fund works, and we're having a second webinar this afternoon. And then between those webinars, we're having local workshops, bringing groups together to think about how their ideas fit, and how we pair them up with a researcher. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and I think it's particularly timely in that it focuses on mental well-being, and particularly as we have the impact of the pandemic, I think it couldn't come at a better time for us. The webinars are available on the Ideas Fund website, so if anybody wants to check them out, they can. Just the next slide there, Colin. So just basically to give a bit of information around what our role is as the development coordinators for the Derry and Strabane area. So we're going to be mapping out the relevant interest in the area. I have to say we have had some fantastic ideas coming forward and a lot of interest from Derry and Strabane. And I think we're just going to have to try and map out, because what we do want is a lot of duplications. We want to try and make sure the area gets can benefit from this as much as possible. So there may be opportunities for groups to collaborate. So we will be looking at a variety of projects and themes, but also British Science Association will be looking at the other areas. So I think it's probably going to be I would say foreseeable that some groups will collaborate, hopefully, rather than duplicate. So we expect probably maybe up to 15 grants to get funded in the region, and we're helping groups to sort of develop their ideas and link them up with researchers as appropriate. So that is really the main crux of the fund, and I suppose it's just letting you know of dates, and if there's any groups out there or individuals that you think would be interested in this. We have our second webinar this afternoon, and then there's a third one on the 18th of March, and we have our local workshops in between. The webinar this afternoon is around mental well-being and just what do we mean by that, and then the third one is around the role of the researchers. So if just spread the word about this. I think it's really, really good for our area to be able to benefit from it, and really exciting. To be honest, some of the ideas that are coming forward, and I think it's a very sort of unique approach that we haven't had before, where we're bringing researchers and communities together. And part of that is about the learning from a researcher's point of view, and also from the community to learn some researcher skills as well. So very exciting, but I think we're going to have a lot of work in trying to whittle through lots of the ideas and bringing the groups together to hopefully we will have some great ideas coming out of the area, and also ideas that are actually going to support and promote positive mental well-being within the area as well. So that's just our contact details. If anyone or any of you know of groups that would be interested in this, they can email us and we'll get back to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Roisin, for that. Members, any questions or comments? John Kelby.
Thanks, Mayor, for bringing me in. Roisin, thanks very much for bringing this to the meeting today. It is a really exciting initiative, and I suppose my only comment was Is there any chance that you might keep us updated, maybe at the next meeting, just to see how things are progressing and the level of interest and how you're beginning to take forward the projects?
Yeah, sure, I can keep you up to date. The deadline for applications is the 14th of May. So in between, I suppose, the next few weeks and the months leading up to May, we'll be helping groups develop their applications. So yeah, I can keep you up to date with how things are developing.
That's great. Thank you. And best of luck with it over the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any further questions? No. Okay, members, the recommendation is that we note the content of the report and the funding opportunities available through the Ideas Fund. Is everyone happy enough that we endorse the recommendation? Seeing a few nodding heads there. No one not happy with it, Roshan. So thank you very much for that, and we look forward to your progress reports in the coming weeks. Thank you. Members, items number 9, 10, and 11 are for information only. I'm hoping that we can take them as read unless anyone wants to raise anything out of those specific items. No? Okay. And item 12, members, is any other business. Oh, sorry, I'm a wee bit in front there. You'll see on your screen now, members, the schedule of meetings. The next meeting is on the 18th of June, 2021. And hopefully, I see the venues to be confirmed. Who knows, by that stage, we might be able to meet in an actual physical presence. And then obviously the 22nd of October thereafter. So any other business, members? I haven't been made aware of any. I don't think Gavin has. No. No. Okay. Members, that brings our agenda to an end and our meeting to a close. I just want to thank you all for your participation in today's meeting on behalf of all of the co-chairs, and thank you for your attendance and your participation. Thank you. That's our meeting closed.